This episode of the Second Floor Podcast is brought to you by ATB. With ATB Cares, giving is easy. Donate through ATB Cares and ATB will match 20% of every dollar donated to eligible Albertan charities, maximizing the impact of your donation. Visit atbcares.com to choose your cause and donate today.
So I think Eric, we're just going to dive into it.
Yeah, sure. Let's do it.
Yeah. So welcome to the Second Floor.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah. Thank you for coming. I know we had scheduled this to do something for a long time. And then COVID happened and all this stuff happened over the last couple of years. And I wanted to bring you on because, you know, obviously I see what you're doing in the marketing space and some of your own personal projects. And it kind of got me intrigued and we've been talking. And so I'm excited for this conversation.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. It's amazing to be here.
Yeah.
So I can't believe how fast that time has gone by in a couple of years, went by just like that.
And now that we kind of have this in person, we're able to do stuff in person now. I wanted to kind of dive a little deep into not only your story, but maybe we can talk a little bit about marketing and some of the stuff that's going on in our climate right now. But before we kind of get into that, I want maybe you to say a couple words about who you are to our audience and kind of what you're about.
So my name is Eric, and it's so good to be here. It just feels good to be back in person. Born and raised here in Edmonton. I have a creative marketing firm named 12 Creative, and I have a young family, 2 little awesome girls, 2 and 10 months, and 2 dogs, which is a little hectic little family here, but as they're growing up, but it's fantastic. And yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I kind of know you through, some mutual friends and people kind of in the marketing space. And I kind of did a little bit of deep dive on 12 Creative and you're doing some amazing things in the city, man. Like, with your clients and some of the work that you're doing. Talk about how, I'm curious just personally, like how you got into the creative space. How did were you always interested in marketing? Was that kind of, or did you kind of stumble in it by accident, like kind of like I did? Maybe talk about how that kind of came about.
Yeah, I can run into like a little on my backstory, I guess. Something I could have done in my intro a little bit. Born and raised here. When I was little, my parents had a business in Papua New Guinea. And I grew up with my grandparents and my aunt and uncle here. But, at age like 4 or 5, they were like, hey, let's come hang out with us and be with the family over there. And I was, okay, sure. What happened there was when I was about 4, I was accidentally kidnapped at that time.
Oh,
so we can dive into that if you want to later. But fast forward, I moved back here. Went to school here. I grew up in a creative family. My aunt was a pianist. My mom and her dad was an artist. So I kind of grew up in that space. And but they're when they came here, they opened a restaurant and so on. There was no encouragement really. It's very typical. Go to school, get a great job, become doctor, engineer, whatever. Your standard parents push you to do. And at a young age, I really loved animals and I wanted to become a vet. And as I got older into high school, my dad's probably like, hey, you're not going to make it there. So here's some books on like design and Photoshop. So I started toying around with that in high school, like a long time ago. And I loved it. I just loved, designing things, graphic design on the computer. So throughout high school and just finishing high school, I would be designing little websites and flyers and all those things. And, as you were able to do that, there's clients that, friends or family or friends' businesses are like, can you help me here? Can you help me there? Yeah. And I found a lot of joy in helping people with their business. And, when they were able to grow their business or put something out or get new customers from the work that we've done collaboratively with them, it felt good. Yeah. So I decided to go into that space at an early age, and I did that. I did computer like software programming and web programming courses out of high school. Didn't really love the software part of the thing. I really, really loved the creative side of things. So that's how it brought me into the web design space. Fast forward, I moved to Vancouver and took a 3-month unpaid internship there. Thinking, being at that time, I think I was 18, Vancouver was amazing. I've never really seen outside of Edmonton, growing up. And I thought, hey, I'm going to go there, get a great internship, work hard and get an amazing paying job, when I'm 18 and this is going to be awesome. You know, I'm going to have a fancy apartment, fancy car, you know, all your ambitions and dreams when you're 18 years old. But the reality of it is when I finished my internship, the company that I was at, downtown Vancouver, beautiful view. It was awesome. The office was cool and everything, view of the water. And they were like, hey, you know what, Eric and my manager at the time, Ivan, we're going to shut down this department now. We're not going to do web design or any of this kind of thing that we were already doing that we had initially brought you on to grow the department with. We're just deciding to just cut back and cut that. And so I was like, oh yeah. So I was like, oh no. So living in Vancouver with no pay for 3 months, hoping for that really like end goal outcome, it was not there. Which is the reality of life. And you learn that, you know, that's going to happen. So then I was just scouring jobs and I was like, there's gonna be lots of jobs. This is Vancouver, right? But what also happens is that there's everyone else that's like you coming from all over the world, not just Canada, competing against these jobs, you know, with a lot more skilled people, with a lot better education. I ended up finding my way to a used car dealership in Burnaby, South Burnaby. You know, your typical used car corner lot, your office is a trailer kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I applied for what they had at the time, update our website, you know, and sell cars. I was like, I don't know how to sell cars. I don't know anything about cars.
Yeah.
But I needed a job. I had nothing, right? So I took that job and they liked my email or resume or phone call, you know, whatever we did at the time, because I mentioned something about the car they had on their lot to stand out from the crowd. And I ended up getting a job updating their website or putting their inventory online. This was the early days, so it's not as simple as it was now. But I was helping them do that and selling cars in the rain, pretty much, Vancouver. At the time, the pay was $800 a month, plus any commission you made, which is not that much, off these old cars that needed some help, and get it boosted just to show a client that's kicking tires, you know, in the rain. But it was an amazing experience. One, you get to be out there and, you know, force yourself, your backup's against the wall. So you have no choice but to learn how to do whatever's in front of you to survive too. But I got to meet some great people. I got to learn how to sell, which is a key to life, I'd say. And, you know, the friends and the manager I had there, energy, he's amazing. He's still my friend now, many years later. We're talking 20 years later. Wow. And I just talked to him yesterday, actually, day before. So you never know. And, you know, after that, and, you know, doing that for a few years, I decided to move back to Edmonton and pursue back to web design and design again. And I did that, freelance for a while before print and marketing firm picked me up and wanted me to do design there. And I said, you know what? I'd like to go a little more into the sales and marketing role. I know that's important. I can keep trying to do this thing on my own, or I can try to, you know, work with a team and learn management and sales and marketing alongside of that. And I took that role, and we helped grow that company at that time was Raycom, and we started there with about 4 people. And I believe we grew to about, I think there are like, I don't know, 10 or 15 locations across Canada now, but I think we did like 10 at that time. So I was kind of traveling to Vancouver, Kelowna, Calgary, Toronto, helping that, you know, and this was a period of 7 years. And we helped grow that company to a franchise, and I was able to still, you know, do kind of strategy in terms of marketing and design, print marketing. But I wanted more in terms of, you know, at that, now fast forward to that stage, social media and, you know, everything else coming to play in terms of marketing too. We couldn't just send flyers out in the mail and expect business, because who opens flyers now? And so at that time I decided, you know what, I'm going to break away and start my own, you know, creative consulting business. It's probably about 10 years ago now. And I did, like, you know, freelance work for a while, as everyone always starts off doing. And as that started to grow, I brought on team members. And, you know, a few years back, we rebranded to 12 Creative and started to grow our team from there. And that brings me till today.
To the present.
To the present.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that the backstory is awesome. And I guess that's 7. Like you said, you were with Raycom for 7.
I think it was about 7 years. Yeah. Great people.
Yeah. So I think probably the last 7 years were probably pretty crucial for you to learn some of that kind of the strategy and the sales and some of the stuff that you probably didn't know.
Yeah.
To kind of get you, with, now taking that experience and bringing it on to 12 Creative.
For sure. Like everything in print is either I need this yesterday or it's a fire to put out, or it's a very fast paced environment I found.
Yeah.
Which also sets the precedence that everything else, like after you get out of that, everything's kind of not as fast paced, So I found that to be pretty good. You learn how to either put out fires or get things done, be really resourceful, help clients one-on-one. And that really helps you moving forward. But I think what's most important about this whole experience and everything you do in life is the network that you build, the friendships that you meet, and those still carry forward to today.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially the network. I think the network is huge.
Yeah.
Especially if you're in the same industry for, a long period of time, making those connections and kind of those partnerships can kind of go a long way. And talk to me about like because a lot of people, especially I know now it's hot, being your own boss and entrepreneur and blah, blah, blah. But, for you, was that jump from Raycom to doing your own thing, how was that transition like? Because I have a range of different experiences from other entrepreneurs such as yourself and people that are doing many different things, and their experience is all kind of different. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious to know, like, when you decided, you know what, I really want to take the leap and kind of do my own thing. What was that transition like?
Yeah, and you know what it's like being your own boss and running your own business too. It's different for everybody, like you said. But I took the leap primarily not because I didn't like what I was doing at the time, but I wanted to try new things. But in my mind, I wanted to build an environment and a team my own way. And not be restricted. Not saying that environment was bad by any means, but I wanted to do something a little bit different. What you find is the dream of what people see is like, being an entrepreneur is you can work when you want. You can do whatever you want. You'll have all the money in the world. But it's quite the opposite. You actually work more than you ever have. For many times, you make less than what you could have made at a cushy salary job. You end up, maybe you're not working for your boss anymore. You're your own boss. But I find that I'm working for my team. I work for them versus the other way around. And you have to consistently be thinking about that. The transition was hard at first. A lot of scary, when's my next project coming? Mm-hmm. How do we pay taxes? How do I get clients? All of those same things, then tomorrow is not guaranteed. That paycheck is not coming unless you go out there and, hustle or do sales or whatever that may be to survive. And that's scary. Then you get to a point where like, it's rolling. It's good. I'm going to bring on my first employee, my first team member. Mm. But then it's scary because you're like, how am I going to make payroll? How am I going to make that money to make sure they get paid? Because I'm responsible for that person, their family, what they bring to their household. If I don't do well and I don't put in the time, it's affecting them as well, right? And I have to worry about that. And that grows. And every time I bring on someone new, I have that same feeling. And I don't know at what point where it gets easier. But we have a team of 10 now, 10 plus with subcontractors and all that. And I still have that feeling. It's still scary as you grow, and it never... And things, we're in the, client services type industry. So it's never really consistent and things could change. And we all know in a heartbeat when something like COVID happens, it shifts just like this. Yeah. And you have to learn how to pivot. And it was a really hard time. And I had to tell my team at that time, listen, more than half our clients' businesses are shut down and we're not getting paid. And it's going to be tough for the next little while. Yeah. But we did our best to pivot and kind of move forward from that. So I think, I guess in a nutshell is that you have to be prepared to work. And there's different ways of running. If you decide to just freelance or, have a business or whatever type of business that may be and work the hours you want to work and you're just happy with, that's completely fine. You choose your hours kind of thing. But if you decide to build a team and build a company and grow, there's going to be a lot of energy, effort, countless hours, 12-hour days every day, 7 days a week kind of thing for many years to come. So I'd say you expect that. You expect nothing in return until you get to a certain point where, things are actually clicking and kind of working. Let's just roll with that. So,
But it sounds like too, like the decision from doing your own thing, I feel like that, like you were all in.
You have to be all in.
Yeah.
Have to be all in.
Whereas a lot of people get stuck on the unknown of like, can I do it? Is this the right time? Maybe I should wait. And for me, it was the same way. Like when I transitioned it to doing my own thing, not that I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. But when COVID happened and the agency that I was with, they dispersed and they laid everybody off.
Mm-hmm.
And then that was like a sign to me. I was like, okay, I could go get another job and I could be talking about this production company that I want to do and et cetera, or I can try in the worst time possible, COVID, nothing's happening and whatnot. But I was like, okay, if I don't do this now, it's just I'm just talking about this for years and trying to prepare and get myself to feel good about like, okay, now it's the right time. So,
right.
Yeah. And even then, like, I know, just some people in my circle who, some who want to take that leap, but they're like, oh no, I'm not sure about this yet. I'm not sure about that yet. But it sounds like when you took that leap, it was like, hey, I'm all in, like 12, I'm going to go into my own thing. I'm going to freelance and I'm going to just figure it out as the days and the months kind of roll by. And you kind of push through, the crap, if you will.
Yeah.
Just kind of like the noise. And I feel like some people get a lot caught up in that.
For sure. And, there's different thoughts I had at that time too. And it resonates now. And I think we're very blessed being here in Canada. And, from my personal experience, I have my family around. So in my mind, I was like, if everything was to fail, could I move back home and live with mom and dad? Mom, will you take me in? Yes. Okay, sure. So can I get a job at, anywhere, McDonald's or whatever, worst case scenario? Okay, yeah. I could probably do that. Would I be able to survive? So I weighed out like, what's the worst case circumstances? At that time, I had no family to support or any of those things, just myself.
Yeah.
So it was the right time for that. But I think you're right. There's never really the best time, Sometimes circumstances like COVID kind of are a sign that for you to take that leap at that time.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you're glad you did now, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
But talking to, young entrepreneurs, a lot of people come to us when, let's say they were starting their business and it's always like a side hustle at first, right? Whatever business that may be. They're like, we need branding, marketing, and so on. Can you help us? And just like a little bit of consultation. And a lot of times like, what are you doing now? And like, oh, I have a great job, but I want to do this because this is my passion. This is what I love to do. The job is not fulfilling. And I said, you know what? They do it for a while, which is great. It's good to have that transition period. But I would say, from my personal experience, go all in. Go all in. You won't regret it because, your job or another job is generally always going to be there, right? Unless you have, circumstances you have to follow. But if this is your passion and this is what you love, why don't you go all in?
Mm-hmm.
If you don't put 150% into something, how would you know if it works or not?
Mm.
And 100% of those people, I can think of more than a handful that came to me at this time and I just think about their businesses now. They've all went all in and they're all super successful at their business and they've grew their, what was at the time a side hustle.
Yeah.
Now an amazing, very profitable, great business. And they're not looking backwards,
Yeah.
Because they put that, when they put their energy and action into that, everything flows into that versus, being half into something,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, kind of pivoting a little bit is, like a lot of people haven't found that passion yet. They're in a space, they're working, maybe they have, a young family, and they are exploring their options,
right,
and seeing what, they've had some interests here and there, but they don't know, but they're not happy in the current position that they're in.
Right.
What would you say to that person who's, trying to figure it out, maybe has, some responsibilities, some people to take care of, some kids to take care of, but they want to take that leap. They don't know where to start. and they don't have that thing of like, yes, this is design is what I've always wanted to do, or real estate is what I've always wanted to do. What would you say to that person? How do they get started in figuring it out? And how do maybe you can provide some experience from your own end?
Yeah, this is a great question. Thanks for asking that question. I think this is very common. A lot of people don't know what their passion is, or they have multiple hobbies or multiple things they liked or did like at some point in time. It could be going back to like your childhood. Like when I was young, I loved skateboarding. That was something I really loved. And someone reminded me of that yesterday. That's why I bring it up. But it's different hobbies that you may have. So I think the answer to this is you can dabble. You could dabble on on multiple things. Maybe you're a baseball card collector. Maybe you love hockey. Maybe you like designing. Maybe you like printing and designing t-shirts, whatever that may be. You can dabble in multiple little things and see how that goes, and then see what works and what doesn't work for you. Sometimes you think that you love something and you're in it. A lot of people, go to university and decide what they want to do, and they've been told what they love their whole life, and they love, let's say, call it accounting, and then they get into the workforce and like, this is not what I want, and I don't love this. But that's the same as, quitting your job and starting your own business. You might not love that, but what's important to know now, especially with what we have now in terms of like technology, social media, being able to be connected with the world through like Zoom and Google Meet and everything. You could try multiple things. You can connect with others. You can love what you do. You don't like it. You don't have to be, it's not infinite anymore. You can try for a while, not like it, close up that shop and start a new one and do something different. And to find time to do that, I know it's super tough because, everyone's like myself, they may have kids and they're busy. They may have only a couple hours at night. But you're tired by the time kids go down, you're tired, and, it's not the same as maybe you have to just find that time. Can you wake up an hour earlier that day? Can you go to sleep an hour later? Instead of taking a lunch and going to sit at a restaurant or hang out with friends, can you work on that, idea, side hustle, blocking out time for those things, which is self-care time, which I think is important. I know you talk about that a lot, on the pod is, for your own, mental health and self-care, to block out that time for that hobby or passion that you're maybe love or trying, and put it into your schedule. Because if it's not in your schedule, you're not going to do it.
And I agree with that. I think at a certain point, you just have to block off that time. You just have to, and I always say this in other episodes too, is like, take some time, just sit by yourself. Take out a pen and paper or a journal or whatever, means, and just sit down and just think about it. And I feel like we don't have, like, a lot of people get distracted with a lot of things that they need to do on a daily basis. They just don't find time for themselves.
This episode of the Second Floor Podcast is brought to you by Edmonton Community Foundation. The foundation acts as a bridge between donors and charities to create a strong, vibrant community for generations to come. You can start an endowment fund yourself or with a group. Once it reaches $10,000, it can start distributing. Vital Signs is an annual checkup conducted by Edmonton Community Foundation in partnership with Edmonton Social Planning Council to measure how the community is doing. This year's focus is on millennials. To learn more about the Edmonton Community Foundation, go to ecfoundation.org.
I think you said it so well, and I want to repeat it here, is that you went on a trip recently, right? To Dubai. And you were really ingrained on your, every day into your business and just grinding. You're taking phone calls and grinding, and we're pretty much working for our clients, as you know. They pick up the phone, we're there, But when you went on that trip, I think you had like that high bird's eye view, away from the day to day. What happened there? Do you have a lot of revelations?
I just felt like, all the creative ideas that I had where before, when I was that kid in the basement who was just thinking about making videos for myself or music or any of these creative endeavors, I had the time to think about these things, and it was free flowing. Now that I was so busy over the last couple of years, and then taking that break, not thinking about the day to day, all those ideas started to rush in. The way my process of coming up with new ideas and doing those things, it all rushed in when I'm sitting on the beach in Dubai or in the cafe and talking to my friend and just being relaxed.
and you forgot those ideas were there. They kind of still got suppressed, right? Or put away somewhere, locked in.
Exactly.
When they came back, it feels good. And then since you got back, was it much better for the business?
It was just, it's just, even just personally, maybe not for the business, but personally, I felt more clarity.
Right.
That was the biggest thing, is I feel more clear and confident of my next, 5 or 10 moves or whatever I want to do for the business and personally, and understanding that and spending that time. And I think, and it doesn't even have to be a vacation, right? It doesn't have to, you don't have to travel across the world or go to Mexico or Dubai or whatever. But I just feel like even I stopped doing that, where I would take a couple days, not look at my phone, not look at Excel sheets, not look at the computer, and just, maybe have a coffee or just do something completely different out of my normal routine, which Dubai was.
Mm-hmm.
I can't talk to my team. I can't go on the laptop. I can't talk to clients because they're, we're 12 hours ahead.
Right.
I'm forced to do something completely different. I'm forced to just to take a walk or do something different.
You're forced to be present.
I was forced to be present.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's a beautiful way of putting it. And then that's when ideas start to flow again. And I missed that process. So, and I think, that's exactly what you're saying, is just take that time, whether that's an hour in the morning, whether that's an hour during lunch break, or whether that's, some time just for yourself. And you don't have to put a pressure of trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
But it's more so just letting ideas flow and just kind of leaning towards your interests or hobbies or whatnot. So
yeah, for sure. A small thing that I do, what I try to do, it's not perfect, is kind of journal, right? Where I put those goals down on paper, put the ideas down on paper, reverse engineer them. And I make sure I try to do that in the mornings, before the hecticness of the day starts, before the phone starts ringing, even before you check emails. Once you check emails, that could just go on forever, right?
Yeah.
It just never stops.
yeah, I know that.
And now there's everything, we're talking, Slacks, LinkedIn, message, everything, every kind of messaging system is pinging you. So, writing that down, being clear of what that is and why you're doing like what you're doing, having a purpose and knowing what that purpose is really aligns your day. And then being away, I know it was tough, during COVID, but like people like to go to the gym or, going now that weather's getting beautiful, going for a run or just spending some time outdoors. Yeah. And it just opens up that clarity.
Yeah, for sure. And I kind of want to, talk about maybe just pivoting back to the, for us, brown people, immigrants, the typical field is not the creative field,
right?
Or the marketing field or whatnot. So I'm curious to know, Eric, like, did you have any struggles with, convincing your parents about the path you're about to take, or was there some support there? Was there no support there? Like, and did you just have to go through and just say, I'm going to do this no matter, what my friends and family say? Like, was there any of that when you were pursuing this? Because if you were going into engineering or the typical blueprint,
parents would be celebrating.
Yeah. So maybe talk about that. Was there any backlash?
I'm very lucky. My whole support system around me didn't push me particularly. Of course, they'd be like, they hear it from their friends, and their friends' kids are like, they got into school, they got into engineering, they got into pre-med or whatever it is that their friends, but my parents, and I'm very grateful for them. And I think they, they've had a time in their lives where, it wasn't super easy. So they're just grateful to be, here and as well. It allowed me to also, they were okay with what I did. So as long as I'm happy and I wasn't, what's it called, like lazy, right?
Yeah.
And I was doing something and trying something. And if that didn't work out, I would try something else. And I was continually putting one step forward. Even if you take 2 steps backwards, take 3 steps forward the next time, they're really supportive that way. And yes, there's times where it's like, oh, what is he doing? Is this going to work out for him or not? And, my dad, who's a little bit more traditional and harder in the sense than, let's say, my mom was, we'll just wait and see. So there's times where he said, okay, we'll just wait and see. And when your dad doesn't say much, he's thinking about something, and he's like, but as years went by, slowly those approvals started to happen. Yeah. But there was no major backlash. I'd say I was very, very grateful that they were very supportive all the way through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. I just wasn't sure because I know it's different for everyone. Some people have that, like, oh, you got it, like you can do it, and then there's some people that are like, no, you should not go that way. You need to go this way. Let's get you back.
Almost not in sense of your like, your standard, which it's more like were entrepreneurs too their whole lives. And they're like, are you sure you want to do this? This is not an easy path by any means. And I don't want my life, to be what your life is. When I was young and they had a restaurant business, that's typical a little bit here now. And they have a catering business now. And I was like, what if I take over that business? They're like, listen, no matter what you do, you're not doing this. It's hard work and, not super rewarding all the time.
Yeah.
So they were almost saying, maybe you should make a different, easier life doing, but then I ended up going down this path and I wouldn't turn back now. I love what I do now, and we can only control the present and future.
Yeah, for sure. And it's funny because you and I have that in common where my parents are also entrepreneurs as well. They have a tailoring business in St. Albert.
Right.
And they've ran that for the last 30 years. I'm curious to know, has what your parents have done over their, their life and their careers in their business, has any of that translated, any skills or anything that your parents have taught you, maybe on the entrepreneurial side, or maybe it reflects into design or marketing? Has any of that translated in, or was it, your parents were just like, no, stay away from this and you figure it out on your own?
Yeah. The one big takeaway from my family, especially my mom, sweet lady, and they're not like, I would say, oh, they're uber successful entrepreneurs by any means. You're standard, mom and pop shop. But one thing that I learned from mom is just, building friendships, relationships. What she's really, really good at is just knowing what the customer likes and just being authentic and building that long term. Like, we have people who approach us now, not really so much out and about now, but like there's where they ate at our restaurant 20 years ago and they still know my mom by name. My mom still knows them by name.
Wow.
There's a little thing she does when we do catering. Usually, let's say the receptionist or admin, they order the food, but the management staff gets to, enjoy the food for their meeting. But she always comes and she always packages a special package for the admin team up front or the people who get to order. A bunch of treats or whatever that may be. She gets to know what they like because they talk to her on the phone. And she remembers all these little details and will always bring that same thing back to them.
Yeah.
So I think it's the empathy and service and, just the kind candor that my mother has towards others, and she's always had, that I hope I got some of that and I'm able to bring that towards, our clients or my circle.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. And I think those little details go that much further, especially in our business, especially in client services or just the servicing industry in general. That little thing, those clients will always remember. And like you said, 20 years later, they're still coming to that restaurant. They still know your mom by name. Like, those things are kind of everlasting.
It's the little things when, like, eating in a restaurant, I had experience recently. I went to the restaurant. We go to the same family restaurant. We do kind of every couple of weeks. And when the waiter or waitress comes and when I come in again, say, would you like that same drink again? I can have it ready for you. Just remembering the little things, that goes such a long way.
Yeah. I know what you mean. I think that's, and I think, even in the marketing space, and I want to get into this now, that, just from my experience, I've worked for an agency for a couple of years. You obviously have a ton of experience and seeing kind of the landscape change a lot from, the old school print to now a lot heavy on digital. I'm curious to know, like, there's so many realms in this industry, with marketing. You take, video, web design, graphic design, some people cater to all, right? How do you kind of navigate through the changing environment that marketing is? Because it seems like every year there's a new platform that businesses have to get onto. There's something new. There's a new strategy, new trend. And as being in this industry and seeing it and always like being a part of it and having to adapt and pivot, how have you done it? And B, is there anything that you kind of stick to and say, you know what, no matter what changes, no matter how the landscape changes, this is kind of what we stick to because we're good at it. What is that for you?
for us as a company, what we stick to, when I say we're a marketing agency, I always use the word we're a creative marketing agency. We're a creative first team because everyone on our team, even account managers or whoever it is, they're very creative people. So I always say we're a creative first team. So what we really stick to is that, creative thought process and branding, building. What we're doing right now is branding. This is branding for you, for the pod, for everything, right? Yeah. We stick to that as a foundation. But what's important is, yes, it's very important to know what's happening and what's changing and what's trending because we need to be on top of things, and that's why clients hire us.
Yeah.
But it's getting to know what works for them. So every client and every business is different. So not every business is going to be super successful, let's say, on TikTok. Not every business is going to be super successful on, let's say, print media or flyers or traditional out-of-home advertising. It's different for every business. So we kind of stick to the guns on what's working for them, but also dabble, like I said, earlier on some of the newer things and see how that works out. I'm not always saying spend more money here and let's try this and just keep shooting into the forest and trying new things. It's let's put a strategy towards it, try it for a bit, agree on that, maybe shift some of the budget and allocation over and then see how that works. But what's really important is to know when it comes to all these different platforms and everything is where it's where are the customers at? So if your customers are not, on TikTok, let's say, which they probably are, but let's just say they're not, right? Then why are we there, right? If your customers are not on a certain other platform or through a certain other medium, if your customers are not, driving cars and not, why are we buying a big billboard, right? Or whatever that case is.
Yeah.
But what I found to be true is that most people have different segments of customers. So you'll have some customers that are on Facebook. You'll have some customers that love surfing Instagram, some customers that are listening to the radio and seeing a billboard while they're driving to work, and some other customers that love an in-person experience. So, having a great experience in your store, at your coffee shop, whatever that may be, is that we're so lucky now because of the different mediums out there and technology is that we're able to adjust the messaging for every medium. Yeah. So it's important to speak to that age group, demographic, whatever that may be, in a certain way. And you can tailor it for each of those segments. And you can test and see how that works versus even as, simple as 10, 15 years ago, whatever that may be, you had one chance to put out a TV commercial with the one message, or a print ad in a magazine or newspaper, and then you would hopefully that message hits it, and then you run with it, and we'll see how that goes. Where now maybe your magazine ad is different than your Instagram ad. The video that you're running on TikTok is going to be different than what you're running on Instagram. What you're putting on LinkedIn as a company is different than what you're putting out on your mailers. And we're able to really target and hone into who your audience is, and change the messaging for them.
What do you say to a client when Eric, that much for a video? That much for a brand guy? What? Like, it's just a video. You're just recording. I get a lot of that. Like, I get a lot of, not a lot, but there's certain clients that don't understand the value that we bring, or kind of the behind the scenes, and they might not know what that kind of the production entails. And so on your end, how do you navigate with a client that's a little bit harder on the, kind of the price point and trying to justify the value that you bring?
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic question. And we get that a lot. And I wonder that a lot myself too. Yeah. But you know what, when they say that's too much, depending on the client, it's so different. I'm just using random, $100 could be too much for a client, and then, $100,000 could be too much for a client. And the spread is, especially in video, I see the spread so much. Yeah. But I think one, you set what works for you, right? Not for what really works for the client, what works for you most of the time, starting with that. How I show them value, it has to be a fit first. So value, there's no reason if they're really set that, like, $1,000 is completely out of my price range because I just don't have that right now, or I can't reach for it, then there's no point of really explaining the value. But if the value was there, they should be able to, find resource to make it work. If they know the ROI and the outcome is, let's just say you're shooting a video, which you do, and you're shooting a promo video for a company that helps them bring in new clients. And they're like, you know what? 1,000 is it's really stretching it. It's too much, right? But on the other side of things, when you put that amazing video that you do, put it out there, they run it out as an ad on Facebook versus a regular static ad. They're able to get $20, $30, $40, $50,000 worth of clients and a lifetime value back.
Yeah.
So is that $1,000 worth $20,000, $30,000?
Yeah.
What's the ROI on customers coming in for them versus not? There's a reason why they're calling you in the first place, right?
Yeah.
So I explained to them what the outcome is, and we have to work on that together.
Yeah.
And I also like to involve them sometimes in the creative process too. So they become, their hands are in there too. They see the value of being involved and having a vision, and then you both executing the vision together.
Yeah.
Or just showing other case studies of what's worked for it in the past.
Yeah.
But you have to find out what works for you. There's always going to be too much.
Yeah.
But I've also find if you price too little, that it's also a negative thing too. So if you're going for work, and people don't always bring that up, you're going for work, and we are in this process all the time, and we're pitching projects, and I don't know where to come in at the number because they don't want to, let's say talk about their budget. I'm worried I'm going in too low because they're not going to go for the low either. Because if everyone's pitching, we'll call it 50,000, and you come in at 10, they're thinking something's wrong with you.
Of course.
Yeah. So there's you have to find that happy medium.
Yeah.
And work with clients who want to work with you. Something I've learned, if we have a lot of young, creatives listening to this, which I know they do, is there has to be a right alignment and fit for the client. I know it's really hard because you're like, I need this client to eat my next meal, to pay my staff, take care of my family, whatever that may be. But every time we've kind of, bent over backwards or went around or did something that we really didn't want to do just for the sakes of getting it, it never works out to be amazing in the end. It always becomes more painful. The client's more, either troublesome, or you don't feel good about the project in the end. And then that doesn't relate to fulfilling creative work.
Yeah.
Every time we've kind of chose to. So you have to choose your clients that are right fit for you, have the same values, have the same vision.
Yeah.
If you have a negative feeling about that client up front and they're trying to grill you on price, or if even on the other side, if they're willing to pay you a lot of money, and you're like, this would really set me up for months ahead if I just took this client. But sometimes there's a gut feeling that there's something going on with this, not that they won't pay you, but, it'll be troublesome, it's going to be a hard process.
Yeah.
It's not worth it.
Yeah. So how long, do you take your, during, I guess, the discovery process, if you will, do you take quite some time to kind of figure it out and make that decision before you leap into a project? Is there, a couple weeks involved, or is it you kind of, after first couple of meetings, you kind of have an idea of, this might be a good fit, or no, this might not be a good fit. Like, is there?
Yeah. I think there are 2 points I can make on that. One, because I've been doing it for a long time, just going back to, my previous work as well, is me just meeting a lot of clients and getting a personality feel and read of how they are. Yeah. If I need this tomorrow or I need this yesterday kind of thing is the first thing out of their mouth, it could be a bad sign. Yeah. But there is those type of things that work out really well as well. It's something that comes with experience, knowing them, and seeing what works, and what aligns. Yeah. Or sometimes and not every client has to align with me, some of our clients work with, angels right here behind the scenes. Some other clients work with other team members of ours, and they align better with them, or their values or mission, whatever that may be, align better with them, and they're a better fit. Yeah. So that's something that you have to figure out with experience, and then you get to see if it's a fit or not. And we do decline projects as well, and we have been more so recently. And even when it's scary to do so, because we find that's the right thing. On the second side of it is when you start learning about what you do really well. Let's just say you shoot videos for restaurants, for example, or weddings, whatever that may be. You start to figure out what the process is, where the values are. You almost productize or systemize service,
Yeah.
And when you're able to do that and you know that you do this really well and you have a 10-step process that works and you become entrenched in that particular industry, let's say you know restaurants in and out, you know what customers like to see, you know what gets them to come in and, you know, buy or drink more or whatever that may be. And you know you can tell that story through that video because you've done it so many times, you know what works and what doesn't. You become an expert in that niche. At that point in time, you're able to kind of set a benchmark and a cost and a package together.
Yeah.
So you're not reinventing the wheel every time for the client or for any type of client comes in. So let's just say you do restaurants business stuff really well. You're able to charge, you know, X amount of dollars because that's your benchmark now. You know what works, you know what it takes, you know where you need to be profitable. If I come in, I'm like, hey, I have a medical spa. Can you shoot my things for my it's a very easy yes or no. You know, I'm really good at doing this. This is my price. And when I'm a restaurant coming into you and it's like, and I'm like, well, how much is the video? And you're like, and I had $1,000 budget. Let's just use those round numbers. Yep. And you're like, no, I started at 10 grand because of this. And here's the case studies that I've done for the other places that have been really successful. And it's 10,000 for this. And here's why it is like this. There's no negotiation, no in between. So you actually save the time of what you talked about earlier, multiple discovery calls. We used to do that. We used to do horse and pony show the whole time. What's your budget? They're like, and they always say this, well, my budget is flexible. If you provide more, then my budget's higher. I'm sure you've heard this too, right?
Yeah.
My budget could be here or there. If I see the value in it, then my budget can go up. Or they try to do something like, we'll do this project at first for this month dollar. If it works, I'll hire you again and you'll get paid this much more in the future.
Yeah.
I'm sure everyone's heard that. The future.
Yeah.
Or I'll tell a bunch of my friends about you, right?
Yeah.
But when you become an expert in your field, and we go back, let's call it restaurant videos again, you're so confident. This is what I do. Yeah. This is the price. There's none of that horse and pony show.
Yeah.
If that package and price is not for them, then you're not wasting their time. They're not wasting your time. It works out great. So that's another way to look at it.
Yeah. And I think it's very tough to look at it that way, especially for, you know, freelancers, you know, guys that are kind of doing their own thing. Until you get to a point where you feel like you're okay that if this client doesn't work with you. You know, I feel like a lot of creatives will bend over backwards to get that client because, like you said, they have to feed themselves or whatnot. And, you know, I feel like I've gotten to a point where, you know, I have a handful of clients that I love working with and they love working with me. But there was like the negotiation on price was never the main factor of a make or break. It was, hey, this is what I'm looking for. Can we do this? Can we do that? What does this look like? How can we work it together? And price was always kind of the thing that not came last, but it wasn't the main like make or break of like, you're going to work with me or not. And I feel like sometimes if that's the case, then it might, like you said, it might not be a good fit. Yeah,
you hit it on the mark exactly. Actually, one of my team members sent me a little meme yesterday. Mickey sent this to me, and it was a little meme that said, project price $500, and it was, we hold your hand. We're putting our whole lives in your with your well, we need you to do this or we're gonna die. You know, there's the paragraph long of, you know, and then project price 50,000 below. Thank you, money sent.
Yeah.
And it's strange, but it's the realest of the real.
It is.
Yeah, it really is that. But yeah, we actually train young designers, or, you know, I'm not saying young in terms of age, but let's say new freelancers or smaller companies or whatever stage, and we host like some workshops and so on. And I always go into niching down and productizing the service, because that's something I really wish we did earlier on as well. The first little bit is always, and this is what my mentors always tell me too, the first little bit's really hard. You are saying no to clients you really need. You're saying no to some of your current clients asking for more work, and you're even firing some of the clients that are not really a fit. And that's really hard, right? Yeah. In those case scenarios, you might want to pass on someone that works better for them. But once you get past that little hump and you realize what your niche is, what your package is, or whatever that may be, then those clients will start coming to you automatically. And it goes from like here to start kind of a little bit of a hockey sticking. And when you become the expert in your field, people start coming to you for that and lining up versus being general and you do everything. But that first little bit is really, really hard.
Yeah. And exactly. It's just getting past that little bit, and then, hopefully getting to the clients that, love to work with you, and the price point isn't the main.
You're solving a pain point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The problem is more of an issue. The price isn't. We need to solve the problem.
Yeah. The analogy I use, and it may work, may not work, but if you're going to a doctor, and let's say, your brother, sister, mom, yourself has a heart issue.
Yeah.
You wouldn't walk into the walk-in clinic down the road. And even if you did walk into the walk-in clinic, what happens? You're waiting for hours. You're putting your name down on the chart, and the doctor may not be the specialist. You're going to go to the heart surgeon. The heart surgeon, one, gets paid a lot more to fix whatever heart problem it is, to look into it and to analyze it. Their lineup is months. You can't there's no walk-in. Their lineup is months, and they have a list of, and they're the expert. So are you going to take your problem to the generalist or to the expert?
Yeah.
So I think the lesson is to become the expert in that niche.
Yeah, I agree. And then that another thing I wanted to touch base on is, with, and I've just noticed this even just kind of for myself, is like, there's the business side, and then there's the passion side. I got into this because I'm passionate about it. And I feel like, over the last couple of years of just me ramping up on work, that I'm now not doing the thing that I've gone into, like I'm not filming every day. Like now I'm in meetings. Now I'm coming up with, documents and doing all the back end administration work, and et cetera, et cetera. So I feel like, there are the artists, the filmmakers, the creatives, the designers who are really good at what they do, and they want to scale, or they want to work with a company, or maybe they want to go and branch off on their own one day. Mm-hmm. But I feel like what they might not realize is that if you do your own thing, that it comes with all this baggage that you might not want to do, you might not be good at, and you might not thrive in. And for me personally, like I'm actually enjoying this side of things, which I never thought I would. It's kind of weird.
Yeah.
I enjoy working with clients and figuring it out. And it's almost getting to that point where I could adapt to either. Like I'm okay getting my hands dirty and getting and filming and doing stuff, because that's what I've always been good at. Mm-hmm. But now I'm starting to learn this side of things, and I'm enjoying learning this side. For you, in your experience, obviously you starting off with the web design and kind of that side of things. And now you're, working your business, and it has all this stuff.
On the admin side of things.
How did you that passion, as you will? You started off with a passion, but now you veered into this. You've created this own organism of 12 Creative, which now it has its own problems and its own things, right?
Yeah.
How do you?
So going back to our last question, which kind of relates to this question, is when you can charge what you want to charge at a dollar amount that works, that actually leaves you less of a back up against the wall feeling, which allows you to actually take on projects that you want to take. For example, if you can, charge XYZ for videos that are profitable, not like, $100 videos, 10 of them, you can do one for $10,000, let's call it. It gives you the flexibility and time, not only put the resources to that project, but now you have resources to take on passion projects. For example, doing videos for nonprofits that mean a lot to you for free. And you find meaning and you find, value in doing all these projects that are helping the community, if that's what you love, right? Yeah. Which I know you love. But because you're able to get paid right for these other projects, you're able to have the flexibility and the resources to do these other ones for nothing, if that's what you want to do, right? To help others in need. On the second side of things, when you talked about, internal, departments, let's say, you have to choose what works best for you, and take on, I might not be the most detailed oriented person, but we have team members who are, and I might not be the best let's say visual identity logo designer, but we have team members that are. And I might be really good at working with clients when they're not, or it could be vice versa.
Yeah.
So it often starts the story like how you mentioned it, where it's the creative starts freelancing. But it could be that you're just super passionate at making videos, creating storyboards, and telling that story. And that's completely fine. And now you have to create a business out of it. And if you don't like the admin kind of things, I know that's always what happens is the entrepreneur is a one-man shop, and they start doing the accounting or whatever the stuff is. But what could happen is if you focus on what you do best, that actually is best suited for the company, which is you could shift all your focus to accounting and client work, whatever. But if your videos are taking a hit on the other side of things, your product quality goes down and your reputation goes down, right?
Yeah.
You have to put your energy and focus to what you do best for the company to help move it forward.
Right.
And it could be, if you're a logo designer, you just stick to designing the best logos possible. Bring in a part-time accountant and a part-time account manager and all those, because you may not be good at those things. And even though you love learning about it, Sarah or Johnny or whoever is 10 times better than you at that.
Yeah.
But you're the best at making logos. Stick to what you're good at. That will always bring that, forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One other question I have, especially in the marketing side of things, and I know a lot of creatives will get some value out of this, is the, pricing your projects, right? Especially in the creative space. And in videos, it's always, like you said, the budgets are crazy, right?
Yeah.
How does a creative or anyone who has a skill set and they have to put a price point on it and a value on it and present it to a client and sit across from the table and say, Eric, this design is going to, be $10,000 and just say it with a straight face, right? And maybe they're not comfortable at getting to a point like that, right? Right now they're comfortable, $100 for a video.
Yeah. But where'd they get the $100 from?
Yeah.
Is that something society is giving us? Right?
Yeah. And that's what my question is how does, you have a certain amount of quote unquote value in your head of like, okay, what I produce, I think is $100. And if I just do 10 of these, a month, as a starting, I think it'll be good. Versus, like you said,
why don't you do one of those?
Exactly. So how does one get to that point of being okay? Because I know when I first started, I had that resistance too, feeling I'm not ready yet to charge this much for one video.
Yeah.
Is there, maybe provide some advice on that front. How do you get to that point of charging not only fairly, but more than fair for your services?
Yeah, it's so funny. I think, I don't know, it's a mentality you kind of grow up with as well too. And maybe I got some of this side from my mom. We make sandwiches at our restaurant. She's like, sandwich is $4 because people shouldn't have to pay more than $4. I'm like, Mom, a McDonald's burger is like $8. You know what I mean? You're making an artisan sandwich with whatever. She's like, no, I feel bad. I feel bad.
Yeah.
But I think we'll go back to where did you get the $100 from? Is that something you came up with? Is that what's standard? Are you seeing that on Fiverr or wherever you're seeing those other things, right? Yeah. And a lot of times people do a couple things. One, they ask around to their peer group, which is probably other freelancers. Like, what are you charging? What are you charging? What are you charging? And they're all like, 100, 150. We're like, okay, I'm going to go with 100. I'm going to go a little bit under what everybody else is so I can get the work.
Yeah.
That's wrong.
Yeah.
I'm still learning to this day, right? But I think what you have to do is, one, charge what's fair and over deliver the value. The other way around versus cutting it. Because really $100, how much resources do you have? But if you were getting paid, $5,000 for that video, well, now you can bring in, the sound professional. You have you can rent or buy the equipment that will make that video that much better. You can bring in, makeup models, actor, whatever that may be, where before you had none of that and you were just working. So your end product is a lot better.
Yeah.
But yeah, you find what works best for you in terms of pricing. But also don't just ask your peer group, find out what industry standard is, but not just other freelancers. Well, what are agencies charging, and we just got a quote for photos back, it was out of town thing. So we were just looking at other resources. A lot of quotes came in at, $500 for some social media shoots for the day. And we got one back in our email, it was Friday, and they were like, it's $15,000 for a half day shoot for photos for social media. I was like, $15,000? How come everyone else is 500 and that one's 15,000?
Yeah.
But then they must be doing something right, because they have a whole list of clients that they work with. They're comfortable breaking down the whole shoot for half a day for $15,000.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't be pricing that out to that price if they weren't getting clients at that price.
Exactly.
It almost like opened up my mind, like, so once you start seeing what the reality of things are out there, then it's, it opens up your mind. So
no, I agree with that. And I think it's just kind of almost habit, or like you said, peer group, looking around, seeing what other people are doing, maybe pricing a little less. And like you said, I totally agree with that. I think that strategy is garbage.
A lot of things that people say not to do is work for free. I actually say the opposite. So if you have no experience, you don't have a portfolio, you're not confident about billing out XYZ for the client. You're going to start at $100 because you think that's a fair, small number. Just give me the work. I'll prove myself. But what you could also do is reach out to your peer group in terms of family, friends, whichever with businesses. Well, let's do a couple, videos, logos, projects, websites, whatever that may be.
Yeah.
For free, but with the ability to put that in your portfolio, let's say. Yeah. You might actually be able to get a bigger name brand or whatever that may be, because, what's the loss to them? You can say, hey, I'm going to do a video for you. It may take a couple hours. You love it, you can have it and use it as long as I get to use it in your portfolio, on my portfolio, and maybe you do a testimonial. But if you don't like it, there's no harm, no fun. Don't worry about it. But if you're awesome creative, like most of these creatives are, it looks awesome, they use it, then you're able to use it in your portfolio. Now, when you're going to the next person, and you could do this multiple times, and we still do this ourselves.
Yeah.
And then when you go to that next client, you say, hey, my price point is this. Here's the work to back it up.
Yeah.
And here's how I would actually over deliver this. So you're actually getting the value off that dollar amount,
Yeah.
You'll get XYZ more here or there, whatever that may be, right? Yeah.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think if you're confident in your own abilities and you've proven that throughout, whether that is free work, whether that is portfolio work, whether you've done the video for $50 or for free, I think if you know what you bring to the table and you're confident that you can produce, and you have the team members or people that you work with that that you can produce, then at that point, I think it's fair to say you can either increase your price point or figure out something that actually works. But it takes the reps, right?
It takes the reps.
It took me years to be completely confident in all aspects of production, because I did every video you can imagine. I've done commercials, weddings,
music
videos, my own projects, right? Podcasting, etc. So like in any realm, in any situation that I walk into, I'm completely comfortable in my feeling of, I can probably do this. But and then the flip side, if we get, like you said, the sound guy, or you get somebody else, another expert, other filmmakers involved, other maybe companies that you can partner up with, okay, now we can do something special, or we can take it to the next level. Yeah. But it takes those reps, I think.
I was just going to say, repeat that. It takes the reps. It always takes the reps. You can't go to the gym and deadlift 300 pounds or whatever, you can't bench, 3 plates on each side just off the get. It takes those reps for you to get there, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. I wanted to now pivot back to something you said earlier on the pod, which was you had this story about getting kidnapped.
Yeah, I can go to that a little bit.
I want to know what that story was, and maybe touch on that if you're comfortable with it.
Yeah, a couple things. Yeah, so it's something I have in my mantra daily, and I kind of write down. It's that I'm grateful to be here today. Whether it be today, waking up in the morning, being here with you. Just living the life I live now, because I think at that point in time, I didn't know it yet, and it didn't hit me till actually more recently, but my life could have really changed, in an instant. When I was young, I lived in Papua New Guinea, which is not the safest place. I lived there for a couple of years while my parents, had a business there before they moved to Canada. And when I say accidentally kidnapped, they didn't mean to take me on purpose, but they meant to take the car. It just so happens they didn't see the little me in the car. So what happened was, I was going out somewhere with my dad and maybe running an errand or whatever that may be. Our building, where our grocery store, and we lived above the grocery store at that time, is fenced off where the parking area is. So he pulled up, left the car running, opened the gate to where we can go from the driveway. Must have forgot something inside the house or inside the store. Left me in the car with the key in the car for a second. I'm not mad at him for it. Yeah. But I now know not to do that too, of course, right? But he ran in for a second. But it just took that split second where someone saw a running car, in a high crime area neighborhood. And they're like, this is a running car? And I think about that car again now. It was like a 1984 Honda Prelude red. Pretty cool for my dad at the time. Jumps in the car and drives off.
What?
Yeah. So here I am, a 4-year-old or 4 or 5-year-old kid. Like, what is happening here?
Oh my God. Yeah.
The training I had at the time when moving there was my mom was like, well, here's your address, here's your phone number, just remember these things. And you're 4, Wow. What you're thinking about when you're 4 years old. But like, so I now went into this mode that luckily my parents kind of prepped me for. I'm like, hey, please drop me off somewhere. I didn't panic per se. I just didn't know what was happening. Someone else is driving off with this car, speeding away, right?
Wow.
I was like, drop me off at the police station. Like, what? Obviously, they did not, right? Because they just literally stole a car. Wow. So they dropped me off on the side of the road. So here I am, in a rough area. Little kid, 4 years old, you're probably in a t-shirt, stranded in the middle of who knows where, nowhere.
Oh my God.
That's very strange to be, you can imagine third world country, how that is. It's very, it's very strange to have a little child in the middle of nowhere in the middle when it was dark too. I remember it was dark. And then some random other people picked me up in what I remember in my mind now, kind of like those like V-dub, kind of like Westphalia type vans, those like camping vans.
Oh, wow.
I don't know, those slide door opens. They picked me up. And I was like, oh no, this can't be good either, right? So they picked me up and I'm like, okay, here's my address. Here's my phone number. Here's my address. Here's my phone number. And I remember now I look back, it's probably like, younger people, maybe in their 20s at the time or whatever. They dropped me off back at the address. So my mom comes out screaming, of course. And it probably wasn't that long. It's probably like within, the hour, let's say. Yeah. But to a parent who I'm a parent of 2 little girls now, 1 minute feels like an hour of, especially in a very dangerous place,
Yeah.
So at that time, now that I look back, I feel like things could have went a couple ways, and I joke about it now, but I could have been either sold to slave labor, which is very, very common. At 4 years old, my life, who knows where I'd be? I could be dead now, or I could be some like kingpin drug lord, or who knows what, I could have worked my way up the ranks in this like crime, syndicate, or I could be dead, and I could be dead. And I think that didn't really hit me until I was traveling in Asia once, and I came out of a nightclub early mornings, as we did when we were young, and there was a really young 4-year-old, 5-year-olds trying to pan like cigarettes and buy things on. They just grew up and they keep pushing you to buy off them. And they use their kind of at that time cuteness, but they become more aggressive. And if you don't buy whatever, they start actually hitting you. And they're little tiny kids, right? But whoever owns them, right, which is horrible, is sitting somewhere, so you can't just like shoo them away because someone's watching them. And that could have been me, I could have been part of this thing where I was just like made to do that my whole life. But here I am sitting in this beautiful studio with you telling the story, having, the privilege of, being here in Canada and having the family I do, Yeah. So that I'm really grateful for today and for being here. I just feel like that one moment within that 1 hour, it could have been night and day.
That's such an insane story. Like, I mean, even with you unknowing your address and your phone number at that young age, like I don't I know when I was that age, I had no clue of my whereabouts or
Yeah.
whatnot. So kudos to your parents or your mom to be like, hey, like if something happens, here's your address, here's your phone number. Like that kind of, I mean, even everything that just kind of that you said, like that's crazy.
Yeah.
Couldn't even.
I know. And it didn't really hit me till like later on, you know, in life. And I was like, wow, when I start, you know, studying more and thinking more and being more grateful and learning about being present and all that, it's like, wow, that could really change my life. So
Wow.
when I think about like when people are like, I'm striving and hustling and for all the you know, I want everything. I want the cars, the business, the house, you know, everything that Instagram is really putting out there now, you know.
Yeah.
And I heard this recently on a different pod. It's, you know, just when you think about, you know, your loved ones, let's say your mom, your dad, you know, is your you know, mom or dad here now? And you're like, yeah. You know, if your mom and dad were sick tomorrow and they needed, you know, a liver transplant, or they needed something medically, would you give up everything for them? Would you, you know, if they were in the hospital and needed everything you had, you'd have to sell everything, give up your business, give up everything you had for your mom to survive, like everything. Would you do it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you already have everything, right? So you already have everything that you need right here and now. If you really give everything for that one thing, you already have everything.
Wow.
So that really hit me hard. I thought that was something.
That's a really good perspective.
Yeah.
Really good analogy too. Like, yeah, sometimes, especially in this Western society, the hustle and bustle of, you know, the individual striving and hustling and doing things, I think you kind of get caught up in that and you don't realize that, you know, the most important things are in front of you and maybe you don't see it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You just
Until it's gone.
Until it's gone. Yeah.
Yeah.
So no, I appreciate first off, I appreciate you sharing that story, Eric. That's very powerful.
Yeah.
And I can see how that kind of has translated into your life and kind of the just into your business and kind of who you are just sitting across from you, man. So I just want to take the time to appreciate you and appreciate that story because I think it puts that in perspective.
Yeah. Thanks so much.
Kind of wrapping up the pod, talking to, like we usually ask this question to all of our guests, and the question is, what does it mean to be on the second floor? And kind of, you know, talking about that analogy is kind of going the opposite of what you just talked about. is that constant, you know, strive to get to the next level, and you know, me and Kenny and the individuals we bring onto this platform. Are always constantly striving to be better personally in their life, in their health, in their business. And we hope to provide, you know, some perspective and some of that value from the stories that our guests share. And so for you in your life, and it could be anything, what does it mean to be on the second floor or maybe get to that next level in life, in health, or in business?
Yeah. I love that wrap up question. It's not, it doesn't have to be a monetary or a material goods thing, right? Getting to that second floor or getting to that betterment of yourself, whether that being more present or learning more or taking that time, is super important, right? Tomorrow is never promised, right? And so I feel like if you're, you know, one, I write this down in my journal, it's that it's my duty to be the best every single day for myself, for my family, and for those around me. So being the best could be health. It could be running the business. It could be just spending time with your loved ones. But it's my duty. So if I'm living now and I'm here today, if I'm not living my best self or striving to get to that second floor and get better, not only for myself, but for those around me, isn't it fair for your family that you work and be your best self? It's not fair to those around you if you are not getting better, right? And what's the point of living if you're not growing? So I think about those things every day. Yeah. And usually it's when your back up against the wall, when you're, you know, outside of your comfort zone, is then when those big aha moments and these big steps happen that are those experiences in life that you can talk about in the future that really help propel you forward, whatever that may be. And it could be as simple as running your first kilometer to the 5K, to the 10K. I know your crew does a lot of running too.
Oh, yeah.
When you see that that's actually possible, one, I think about things, what I heard, and it could be right or not right. The other person who did it already, they're just as human as you. They have the same 24 hours in the day as you do. Why is it not possible? Instead of thinking why, it's like, why not? But when you're back up against the wall and you're trying to push out outside your comfort zone, that's what everyone says, where the magic happens, and that's growing, in life.
Yeah, I love that answer, man. Well, Eric, man, I appreciate you coming on and chopping it up.
Yeah,
with me.
thanks so much for having me.
It's been a long time coming. I just wanted to add, take the time now to add your social media. If someone wants to get in touch with you, if any creatives, anyone, plug in your socials here.
Yeah, you can mostly find me on Instagram at ericcheng.12. On LinkedIn, you can add me. Feel free to shoot me, DM message, whatever there may be on any of those, and I'd be happy to reach out and say hi. Yeah,
amazing. Well, thanks, man, for coming on to the second floor. I appreciate you.
Yeah, it's a pleasure being here today.
Yeah,
right.
That's a wrap.
Awesome.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Great.
Appreciate
Awesome,
you.
man.
Appreciate
Love
you.
it.
Yeah.